all stroke survivors, generally they're told that you have 6 months after you recover, after the stroke, that you can, recover, or that you have the most neuroplasticity after 6 months. That may be the case, although that doesn't mean that healing or recovery stops. Things have come back.
Hi, I'm Brittany, and a member of Bind and Brain Injury Survivor.
And hi, I'm Carrie, a stroke survivor and a member of Bind as well. And today we are excited to welcome Judy Cage. Judy is also a stroke survivor, an author, and an advocate who has defied staggering medical odds and now helps others navigate life after trauma. So, welcome, Judy.
Opinions shared by the guests of the show are their own and do not necessarily represent the views of the host, bindwaves, or the Brain Injury Network. This podcast is for informational purposes only and is not a substitute for professional medical advice, diagnosis, or treatment. Always seek the advice of a healthcare provider with any questions you may have regarding a medical condition. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Okay, and if you would just kind of provide a brief overview of your stroke and your recovery journey so far.
Absolutely. Well, in January of 2019, I had a massive hemorrhagic stroke. The blood flooded the right side of my brain, and so it took out the left side of my body. I had, and I'll just go head to toe basically. I had double vision. My left arm fell out of my shoulder socket. I had drop foot and left side neglect entirely. And then I had, cognitive issues, speech issues, lost some bodily functions. But I actually, with a combination of, working massively at the therapy and spontaneous recovery, I was able to get most of it back.
That's great.
Yeah, in a pretty quick amount of time, I was actually able to walk out of acute rehab. I basically had spent 8 weeks total in the hospital, but I was able to walk out, and then after one round of occupational therapy, I actually returned to work. So some people might call it crazy. I was just stubborn.
But after a stroke or brain injury, I think stubborn is a good quality to have.
Yeah.
I have valued it a lot now, yeah.
So, what do you think was your biggest improvement since your stroke?
I'd say that it was probably that recovery, the gaining that all back. But then also I think the things that I've regained that I never thought I would, like my reactions and my instincts and like my reflexes, those have actually come back better than they were before. And I'm not entirely sure why, but I'm not going to question it. Now I can catch things as I drop them instead of, letting something fall and crash. And that, I was clumsy before, so I never expected that sort of thing to come back. But yeah, it's really just, the walking was probably the best I had felt in a while. So.
That's good. Yeah, I know. I tell everyone, I think for me, because my stroke, I had a hemorrhagic as well. It's very similar. Mine was on the right side, affected the left side. I tell everyone, I think for me, my full independence was when I got rid of the cane. because then I could carry my own coffee. I could actually open the bathroom door on my own. I didn't have to have someone go with me, everywhere I went to open the door for me. So to me, that was like, yeah, independent. I'm here.
I mean, on a more, on a higher level where you're impacting more people, I would say driving and getting that back was also pretty huge. So,
Yeah.
but then you're putting others on the road at risk. So,
Right. So, what was your career before your injury?
before my injury, I was a compliance officer for a commercial mortgage company. I had started, and it's kind of in the field of accounting, audit, and then risk and controls. So,
No, go ahead.
I'm sorry. Oh
Just
no,
wondering, were you able to go back? You were able. I mean, from
Yep.
what I think you were able to go back into that. And
I was. Yep.
They were very accommodating. If I
Very
remember
much
correctly.
so. Very much so. The company is great in terms of, they had, they followed the rules of long-term disability of that company, and the company itself was a bit more stringent and unpleasant, but my company itself were super supportive. They, gave me as much time as I needed to go through the therapy and then go through the outpatient therapy. And then they always wanted to listen to my doctors, as we move forward. So my stroke doctor said after the outpatient, I was permitted to work 4 hours a week, which I thought that was crazy until I started and understood that, wow, 4 hours is actually pretty hard. And then I just built my way back up. And I was working, I'm sorry, on long-term until, I built it back up until November of 5 years. And then they kicked me off for working too many hours. And then shortly after that, I was actually promoted at work. So,
That's awesome. And did you find that you needed any additional or new accommodations to help you do your job that you didn't need before the stroke?
I did. Before the stroke, I would always push. And I think, I guess that still continues. But they allowed me to work, kind of closer to, waking up later. If I would start at 10 instead of, 8:30 or 9. And then if I was failing cognitively, my boss would tell me to shut down. He would see it on my face on video calls or hear it in my voice, and he would just say, Judy, shut down. And that was incredibly helpful. I mean, sometimes I would be stubborn and say, well, boss, I can get through this. It's not a problem. But it absolutely was a great supportive feeling to know he was looking out for me.
That's great.
So part of your journey, are you part of any organizations or support groups?
I am a peer mentor at the hospital. And also, I also talk to numerous stroke survivors. I tell everyone to pass them my way so I can, help them out. I am part of the stroke support group at the hospital. And when pre-COVID, the hospital also had a patient and family advocacy group, and I was a part of that as well.
That's great. And I know that through all this, after your stroke, you went out and wrote a book called SuperSurvivor. So how did you decide to write a book in the midst of your recovery and trying to go back to work and do all of that? That's pretty amazing.
Thank you. Well, a few months out of the stroke, I had set my mind on a goal, and I said, let me run the Broad Street Run in Philadelphia, which is a 10-mile run. I'd never run long distances before. I, kind of detested it. Even in my track career, I did short distances. I started a blog to document that journey, saying, yeah, look at this. I wasn't walking a few months ago, and now I'm going to run 10 miles through the city of Philadelphia. And but then that was stopped short. My doctor said, do you think you should ask your doctor whether you can run 10 miles, And I said, oh, doc, do you think I can run 10 miles? And he says, I probably, I could run the 10 miles, but that the training would be bad for blood pressure going up and down. So I had to switch goals or switch gears. I chose a whole number of other goals, like going to get a professional certificate at the Berklee School of Music. I, just wanted to kind of dabble and live in life. And once the 5-year mark came, I had turned that blog into a book because the 5-year survival rate for hemorrhagic stroke was in the study that, like, one of the very few studies you find out there, was 26.7%. So when I passed that mark, I had kept, by the way, I had kept my stroke and my struggles private for so long. And I had done that for the workplace, but also to my neighbors, so that I wouldn't get, the pitying looks or, just kind of all the questions. All the questions, are fine. But I had just kept it quiet, and I didn't want anyone to know, professionally. And as I did more and more peer mentoring, I felt like the same questions were repeating. And also people wanted to know that it was possible, that you could go back to work, that you could, rebuild your life. So I wanted to put that out there. I said, I don't know why I'm hiding. It's not doing anyone any good for me to hide this. So that's why I came out and wrote it.
Which gets us into our next question. How do you challenge ableism and invisible illness stereotypes?
Well, mostly I present very normally. The more people that I meet, they tell me there's no way you had a stroke. They don't believe it. Not that they would be conscious, of it. Most of the regular people, or regular healthy individuals who haven't had a brain injury or stroke, they see me and they treat me like I am perfectly healthy. And in doing that, it has contrasted for me, my own awareness, that this is what the rest of the the rest of the healthy world sees me as, or this is how they naturally move about the world. But my understanding, all of this now, I can show and announce, the viewpoint of a non-healthy person. Excuse me. And so then, as I can point these things out, I can also advocate for people in the workplace, who could use resting stations or electrolytes, or, different hours if they need it. And I'm just trying to create as much awareness around that as possible.
That's good. So, is there anything specific that you found that you can do or do to empower others with chronic or cognitive challenges?
Oh gosh, I have learned so much about pacing because I was so stubborn with with just overdoing it and then crashing, and then finding what my brain, needed for, like, to keep going. So if I got tired, of course, the cognition disappeared. My speech would slow down. And so I've learned, I've passed on to other peers, that, you can kind of filter things out just by shutting off all the stimulus. Like if I was on a Zoom call, I would, put on closed captioning. But if there were a bunch of words on the screen, I would also just turn off my camera and put my head down and listen to what was going on so that I could actually absorb some of it. And so when people don't realize that when you're at a crowded restaurant and you can't filter out any of it, that noises are bouncing off the walls, I say, okay, but it is possible. Put in an earplug, or put in both. It is possible to help kind of lessen that cognitive load. And then also the fact that you not only have physical energy that you expend, but you have mental energy, emotional energy, and taking into consideration everything that you have to process within the day. And if you have events later in the week, then you can kind of balance out your load. And knowing that and sharing that has, from my mistakes or from my lessons, I've been able to share that with other survivors.
That's really good. I'm going to take a quick little break and just remind our listeners to go ahead and click that like button, click that follow button, click that share button. Just click all the buttons that have a thumbs up, and we'll go from there. But I was going to say, I think that is so true, and I love that you recognize that in yourself and that you're sharing that with others. Because I know once I finally got back to being normal and thought everything was good, we started the podcast, let's say 10 to 12 years after my stroke. And the first day we did the podcast, because just the way that things worked, and it was a free thing, someone was doing everything for us in the beginning. We did like 5 podcasts in that first day, back to back to back to back. I was a corporate trainer, so I was used to talking all day. I'm used to talking all day regardless. I'm happy to do that. But at the end of that day, I went home and took the longest nap before bed because I was so mentally drained, and everything about me. My body hurt, my brain hurt. I was like, that was so much to do, and it's one of those things that I guess people take for granted in a normal day, that there's they're fine. But we have found that in the clubhouse, that we tell new survivors, if you can't make it the whole day in the beginning, not a big deal. You're here to work and do as much as you can do, and if after 5 hours you go, no, or 3 hours, I need to go home, or we do have a room we have a quiet room that has recliners. You need to go take a 15-minute break. No questions asked. Go ahead. That's one of those that I think a lot of people don't realize. Again, it's that you look fine. Why are you tired?
Or I used to have. Oh, I'm so sorry. I used to have a lot of TIAs from the age of 4 because I have moya moya syndrome. I, in the office, once I was in my early 20s and on, prior to my surgeries and prior to the stroke, I would have a TIA and I would have to leave work. And I said I had a really bad headache. And my coworkers would look at me and say, I have never gone home because I've had a headache. I'm like, well, you've never had one of these. And so, yeah, absolutely. It's so difficult for them to understand.
TIA again?
A transient ischemic attack. It's a mini stroke.
So, wow. especially a visible injury. I look invisible. A lot of people are like, you don't look like you have brain injury. I'm like, well, I do. And then sometimes by day 2, I go home and I'm tired. Like, I will skip dinner and everything. I'll be like straight to bed. And then I'll wake up. I'm like, oh, it's the next day. Let me recharge my battery.
Right, yeah. Well, I know you said that you had a track career and you attempted.
Oh.
I'm
Sorry.
So, what do you do for fun outside of work? Do you still like to run or jog, or what do you do to relax after a long day?
Oh, I do not do anything faster than walking unless I have to. Sometimes I run after the dog if he pulls, from a scooter. I'll listen to music. I will, sometimes if I have the energy, I will binge watch some Netflix. But I'll snuggle with the dog. Usually, that's probably my favorite thing to do.
I would say I'm a firm believer in there's no need to run unless someone's chasing.
Yeah.
I mean, I'll leave it at that. But yeah. Even when I was healthy, I was not a runner.
When I'm late to an appointment, say to my chiropractor who's a couple blocks away, I will try to, pick up my feet and go. But I've found that I can run when it's something that I really am excited about. But if it's something that's kind of, boring or monotonous or, I can't just mechanically pick up my feet the way I used to.
Yeah, I can't. I still have to wear an AFO on the left leg. So my leg never came back. So I don't walk normal. So running is just not an option. I can kind of walk a little fast, but it doesn't help that I have little legs too. All 4'11" of me never could walk that fast.
So, what's one piece of advice you would like to leave with our listeners?
One big piece, and I think you have talked about it on your pod before, is that all stroke survivors, generally they're told that you have 6 months after you recover, after the stroke, that you can, recover, or that you have the most neuroplasticity after 6 months. That may be the case, although that doesn't mean that healing or recovery stops. Things have come back years after my stroke. As long as you can kind of improve that by continuing to work on things, or, if you brush your teeth, say with your non-dominant hand, you could maybe, rewire your brain to pick up more connections. And I just want to let people know that they shouldn't get discouraged if they only think that they've got the 6 months to get things back, that there is a lot longer.
Yeah, I totally agree, and we do say that a lot. Brain injury is lifelong recovery, and we're fortunate enough to have our life to continue to work on recovery. And I agree. I see 16 years later, I can still see progress being made. Maybe, not like leaps and bounds progress, but progress. So, is there anything that you feel like we should have asked you that we haven't covered yet that you would like to add in?
Not that I can think of, really.
Okay. Well, then I'm going to say thank you, Judy. Thanks so much for sharing your experience and words of wisdom, and keep helping other survivors out there.
Absolutely. I love doing it. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much.
Welcome. And thanks to all our listeners for listening. And remember, you can find our new episodes on all your favorite platforms. Until next time.
Until next time.
We hope you've enjoyed listening to Bindwaves and continue to support Brain Injury Network and our nonprofit mission. We support brain injury survivors as they reconnect into life. the community, and the workplace. And we couldn't do that without great listeners like you. We appreciate each and every one of you. Please remember to click the like button, the share button, and the subscribe button on YouTube. And follow us on Instagram at bindwaves and Brain Injury Network on Facebook. You can email us at bindwaves@thebind.org or go to our website, bindwaves.org, or call us at 972-769-2463. Please continue watching. Until next time.